goals give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LOLC Finance.
Be part of the solution to make your world a better place. Don't litter. Care for your community by disposing waste properly. Refresh Sri Lanka for a civic-minded society. In association with AICPA and CIMA, CA, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, and 99X. LMD, the voice of business.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. Tonight on the forum, we're focusing on the next chapter in Sri Lanka's digital journey. And with us, we have the founder and CEO of WSO2, Dr. Sanjiva Weerawarana. Very nice to have you on the show, Sanjiva.
Thank you. Very nice to be here.
To start off our conversation, how would you assess Sri Lanka's journey so far in terms of embracing digitalization?
I think overall, Sri Lanka has at a consumer level, digitalization is quite well adopted. We have a pretty decent level of smartphone penetration. I think probably 70% or more now smartphone penetration. And then we have whether it's people using things like PickMe or, online ordering or WhatsApp-based medicine delivery or whatever, there's pretty good adoption. So obviously that means corporates have also kept up and kind of, found a way to be part of that. So overall, it's good. Of course, room for improvement, but it's good.
And many of us think that the pandemic was the accelerator that really drove digitalization around the world. So with 2 years of acceleration, how successful and sustainable do you think Sri Lanka's digital footprint is?
Yeah, I think there was a study which said there was 7 years worth of digitization that happened in 1 year because of the pandemic, because there was no choice. So certainly there's no question there was an impact here as well, because things that, government working from home over digital was inconceivable, let alone implementable, but yet we did it. So I think sustainability-wise, there is a digitalization and remote enablement has a benefit and has a price. And I think we're going to go back to non-digital behavior because of various reasons. But I think it's very good progress and results in the last 2 years.
And if we were to kick the momentum to rise a few notches, what do you think we should do?
So what makes digital go faster is really very simple economics. Digital needs to be more cost effective than non-digital. So in Sri Lanka, the cost of people is still sufficiently low that the amount of investment companies are willing to make on digital is relatively low. In countries where salary compensation is higher, the digital product is more cost effective. Let me just put it in simple terms. Let's say you pay somebody 250,000 rupees a month in Sri Lanka, which is a pretty decent salary here in many corporates. 250,000 rupees a month, let's say for round numbers, is $500 a month, right? And we have to buy them Microsoft Office Suite or 365 or Google Workplace or some kind of digital technology platform for them to use, or Zoom that you're recording this call on, or whatever the thing it is. That is, I think the entry-level edition of Google Workplace is $6 a month per user, right? which is, if you're paying $500 a month, that's let's say 1% of the person's salary. But it's the same price in the US. The minimum salary you'd be paying that person would be at least $5,000 a month. Actually, if somebody was earning $200,000 a month here, is probably earning $10,000 a month there. So it's $6 on 10,000 versus $6 on 500. So for corporates to go digital, it's a lot more expensive in Sri Lanka. So that's a challenge, and there is no simple solution to that challenge. But it is one of the reasons why, because people are still cheaper in Sri Lanka, we will try to do as much with manual work versus buying a digital solution, unfortunately.
And talking about people, what are the strengths and weaknesses that you see in the available talent of the industry in Sri Lanka today?
So I assume you're asking about IT industry, IT skills, right? So we have a pretty meaningful size IT skill base in Sri Lanka. Obviously, everybody wants more of everything and more of that for sure. But it is a pretty decent size IT capacity. In terms of the basic skills and the skill level, our people are very, very competent. We can compete with anything. We can, we have knowledge in whatever. And of course, the digitization has also meant knowledge acquisition is no longer hindered by where you are. It is only hindered by whether you want to learn or not. If I want to learn about NFTs or the latest hot topic, ChatGPT, or deep learning, or whatever the thing it is, I have the same access that somebody in California has. That statement wasn't true 10 years ago, certainly, right? Today, that is the truth. So as a result, the skill base of people is very good, and our people are globally competitive.
We're seeing an unprecedented level of skill migration happening across all sectors in Sri Lanka. And how do you think this is impacting Sri Lanka's growth and drive towards becoming digitally empowered?
Yeah. So the skill migration, so if you take IT skills, right? As I mentioned, we are very competitive. We have very quality people who can do the work for anybody anywhere, and IT is a highly portable skill. So it's natural that when we have economic challenges in Sri Lanka, and when the dollar has appreciated so much against the rupee, dollar salaries are a lot more attractive, and the migration is just going to happen. It's unavoidable. So we have quite a bit of migration, economic driven migration happening, hugely accelerated in the last year, and that's a challenge. There's no sugarcoating that. It's a big challenge. A lot of people are leaving. At the same time, from that individual's perspective, that's the right thing for them to do. For their own personal growth, their family growth, they should do what's right for themselves. So it's not an easy situation.
So Sanjiva, is there any work around this, like perhaps getting them to work remotely from wherever they are in the world?
So last year was unprecedented, obviously. What happened from March till we we had some degree of stability coming in. It was very, very unprecedented. So that really broke the back of the faith many people had on the future of Sri Lanka. Personally, I'm dead committed to the future of Sri Lanka, and I will never leave. I came back after 16 years in the US, and this is my home, and I will not go anywhere, no matter what happens. But for a lot of young people who have young kids, they have a responsibility to look after the best interests of their children as well. So for them, that statement is not that easy to make. And what last year did was it really tested even the most faithful, who said, look, Sri Lanka has so much opportunity, so much capacity, so much potential. I'm not going to give up on it. I'm going to stay and do what I can. The family pressure, I see it in the staff in WSO2. A lot of the people who want to go, they don't really want to go, but they have massive family pressure to leave. And that is something that Sri Lanka has to address, which really comes down to saying the leadership of Sri Lanka, and I hate to put any responsibility on political leadership because they haven't, for the most part, delivered for the entire period that we've been under political leadership as an independent country. But creating hope for people is the responsibility of leadership. And if the leaders don't do that, the people will lose hope. If you lose hope, you find alternatives. And we need to not just create false hope, obviously, just coming up with nonsense statements that everybody knows is not going to happen is not the point. With integrity, deliver some level of messages of hope and act towards that so that the population starts seeing that, look, this is a great country. I've lived in the US for 16 years and I could have lived anywhere else if I wanted to. And the reality is, every country has a set of problems. We have our own set of problems. And people who are in a tough position always see the other side as, other man's grass is greener or other person's grass is greener. And that's natural when you are in the worst possible situation. But especially for professionals, right? So, but it's only when you go there, you realize, okay, this is a tough lawn too. I got to work hard to keep it green. And so we have to work hard to keep it green here, and this is our home. So, I think it is important that we find a way to make it work.
Looking at Sri Lanka's ICT sector and our exports related to it, what are the trends that we can anticipate this year?
Yeah. So unfortunately, most of the IT sector exports are service exports, which basically means in put simple terms, we sell our mind by the hour, one way or the other. And you can sugarcoat it any way you want, but that's what it means. The problem with that is you can only sell 1 hour of your mind's time for 1 hour. If I sell my mind 1 hour to somebody, I can't sell it to somebody else for the same time. So our IT and IT enabled export services that we do are good. They create good jobs. They bring good revenue. Somewhere around $1 billion plus now. $1.5 billion to $2 billion if you listen to the industry. Central bank says $1 billion. So I don't know what that means about repatriation of income from that industry, if that's the case, but whatever, in that kind of range. But the bottom line is, in order to create real value for Sri Lanka from IT, services is not the game. Let me give a simple example. Israel has 10 million people, right? Sri Lanka has 20 million people, and rounding the numbers. Israel in 2021 had, I'm going to get the number wrong, $19 billion of exits in the tech industry. Exits meaning companies that sold or went public or whatever in that period, in 1 year, right? And they have, I can't remember how many, more than $1 billion of investments into the companies that come in. And Israel is all about, because they have limited number of people, it's all about product. It's not about services. So if you want IT to be a driver of Sri Lanka's future, IT industry to be a driver of Sri Lanka's future, we need to forget about saying we need to create more and more people, but saying we need to identify business problems for which we can create fantastic world-class solutions, sell them as products, and become like Israel and Ireland, not like India. Right now, India is a massive market. India has their own products for that country itself. So which is, India has enough room to do both within the country. Sri Lanka is too small within the country. We have to sell products globally to be an effective software producing country. So our IT industry is fine. It creates good jobs. It creates good salaries relative to other industries. It does a great job. But we can do so much more, and we need to do so much more. Facebook didn't come from America, right? Neither did ChatGPT. It came from a small group of individuals who had an idea to change the lives of people or change technology or create something new, or Twitter or anything, right? So it's not a country strategy that brought ChatGPT or the GPT-3, 4 models for large language models, or that brought Twitter, or that brought LinkedIn, right? The country has an environment that allows people to create like that. But fundamentally, it was the individuals who created those ideas and took it to the world, took it to the US market first and then to the world. In Sri Lanka, any problem domain anywhere, we can also go after just as much as some kid in California or New York or Mumbai or Bangalore or Sydney or London can go after. That has to come from those entrepreneurial minded individuals who go after those opportunities. So it's not for me to say, these are the areas in which we can create. There is no such thing, because there'll be lots of areas which I don't know a clue about, which some random person can come up with an idea and pitch, right? And go raise money and go after that business and get customers and make happy users and become good companies. That's the way we need to think about this. It's not that what are the 3 areas that we can go after and let's put a strategic focus on that as a country in building digital solutions or digital products. It's never worked for anybody anywhere. Why would it work here? It's all about facilitating the individual entrepreneurs who have some vision, some creative thinking, some passion, the skill necessary, the capacity necessary, and then can find the resources necessary to go after it. And letting that happen.
That's a very inspiring way to look at it, Sanjiva. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll resume our conversation on the next chapter in Sri Lanka's digital journey.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Celebrating 24 years of Light 87.
Welcome back. We're talking to the founder and CEO of WSO2, Dr. Sanjiva Weerawarana. Looking at the innovation potential of Sri Lankans, how well are we really capitalizing on new technologies?
2 of the things you mentioned, cloud computing and virtualization, are very old technologies today. Right. So they've been around for 20 years. These are not questions anymore, whether you're going to use it. It is just a question of when and how. AI has been around for very long, but AI is kind of in a hot period right now. So yes, so AI is something we everybody's looking into, right? In terms of facilitating, there is nothing that stops anyone from adopting cloud computing, virtualization, AI, blockchain, NFT, whatever big fancy word you want to throw out there. There is nothing that blocks somebody from Sri Lanka from participating in that, equal to a kid in California, Ohio, or New York, or London, or Luxembourg, or Dubai, or Bangalore, right? And I didn't go to the Asian countries, Bangkok and Shanghai and Wuhan and everywhere else, right? Because there is no, these are all internet scale resources today. There is no, the one facilitation we have to do, in my mind, is help the individuals who have an idea not think in terms of, let me get a few customers in Sri Lanka, then let me get a few customers in the region, then let me take on the world. That doesn't work. That will never build a $1 billion software business out of Sri Lanka if you start that way. You have to start with saying, why can't I build the product that is the best in the world for this particular niche that I am bringing something to the table, right? And then the second part of that facilitation, so that part is on the individual, on the entrepreneurial minded individuals to come with that, right? Second part of that is we have to fund that. It takes money, right? And typical Sri Lankan investment thing is, I'll give you 5 million rupees and I'll take 20-30% of the company for that. 5 million rupees barely hires one good engineer for a year. Engineers are expensive in Sri Lanka and they're expensive globally. You can barely hire one engineer. So you can't do anything with 5 million rupees if you're going to build something for the world. So it's a two-sided thing. If the entrepreneurs change the game and to say, we're not looking for Sri Lanka market, we're not looking for Bangladesh, Maldives, Malaysia kind of market. We're looking for the global market. Here's the product we're trying to create. Here's why it's going to compete. Here's the market segment. Here's what we're going to go after it. So we need to help people think in that way. Why can't I take on the world? There's no reason why I can't take on the world, right? Get them to think that way. Then you need the people who are investing also to think that way. Say, look, if I can get this to go, this 10 million rupees I'm putting in can become $1 billion, not 100 million rupees, or can become 10 billion rupees, right? Let me give you an example. One of the best investments that have been ever made is by a company called Warburg Pincus that invested in a company called BA in the early stages. Their return was 10,000 times, right? They invested like, I don't know, some $1 million in the early stages. They got 10,000 times that in the return, right? So to facilitate that, so in my mind, there are three things. One is you need the individuals and the entrepreneurs to think in a world domination way or world competing way. Even if you don't want to dominate, you must have the mindset of, I'm going to compete for my little niche in the world. Second, you need investors who are willing to back that. Third, equally important is when things go wrong, don't mark this person a failure. Because I can tell you, when I was raising money for WSRO in the early days, in 2005, one of the things everybody said is, oh, you're a first-time founder? You need to have failed once, then we can fund you, right? Because the assumption is second-time founders are smarter because they've learned what not to do, right? And in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, the mindset generally is, if you lose my money once, I'm going to make sure you never raise money anywhere else. And in many places, they ask you for unreasonable collateral to raise venture risk money, which you can't do. You can't do innovative product creation without being able to risk money on nothing but this individual. So these are the few things that we need to facilitate in order to see real global products coming out of Sri Lanka.
And Sanjiva, how can we facilitate this kind of thinking? Where can we begin? I mean, I know government is not the answer because it lies with each and every one of us. But if you could highlight any starting steps on how we can go into this situation.
So there are several, in Sri Lanka, we have several places that are running various kinds of incubation and support infrastructures, various startup competitions. There's only one real startup competition in the world that does amazingly well, which is something called Y Combinator, which, now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because the best ideas keep coming to them because they are the best place to get started. If you can get accepted to Y Combinator, you have like guaranteed angel funding and so forth if you can graduate. In most other places in the world, people have tried to replicate that model, and it has moderate successes at best. So, and we are trying our own way for that. I'm not going to name them, but there are some government entities that run this kind of contests. There are various private companies, larger private companies, and so forth. And if you look at their numbers, at best we would call them moderate success. So that is, in my opinion, that is not the right way to do it. And the right way is we need to build more awareness and more culture for failure as a qualification, not failure as a black mark that you apply for the rest of the person's life. On one, we need to bring, there are enough Sri Lankan or Sri Lankan origin or Sri Lanka passionate individuals who have done software businesses successfully to some extent, get them to help mentor and drive these individuals. And third, we have to raise larger funds to go after this. 100 million rupees to go invest into 20 companies, I'm sorry, is a joke. You're not going to get any one of them to do $1 billion company, never.
Indeed. LMD recently launched a campaign titled Refresh Sri Lanka to really encourage a mindset change for a more civic-minded society. When we look at digitalization and Sri Lanka's next chapter in this journey, what would your focus areas be to really ensure that the element of social responsibility is not ignored?
Yeah, there's social responsibility, and then there's sort of the accountability aspects. So digital, one of the India's national digital infrastructure is incredible now. They have this system called Aadhaar, which is really just a biometric identity system. But with that, they can associate every person positively to a number. And then all national social assistance, everything goes through that number. So it reduced corruption significantly. So the thing I would love to see more in Sri Lanka is digitization of the government to consumer interface, government to citizen interface, G2C, right? Where we interact with the system in a digital way more, because the more you do that, the more it becomes difficult to bypass and do sort of, illegal or wrong things, the more accountable the system can become, and so forth. So the social responsibility that I see is not from the, do some charity kind of CSR and all these fancy CSR awards and all this stuff. That's, to me, that's we never apply for a single award in WSO. It's just, awards are not the way we run the company. The CSR, it's not the social responsibility in that sense that matters in my mind. In my mind, what matters is, as LMD, as a business magazine, as a business voice for the business community, should encourage this kind of creating an environment where government, governance, and those who govern and those who are governed, include us, are all more accountable to the system, and don't do things like, crazy tax dodge schemes to whatever, all the kinds of stuff that has made Sri Lanka what it is. We love to blame the politicians, but we ourselves are to blame significantly for the problems that we have, because of the various ways in which people have behaved. Because politicians are only one side of a corrupt conversation. It takes two to tango, and the private sector and the citizens are the other half of that tango, that duo. So I think what I would love to see is getting everybody to accept that we need to drive a culture of accountability, and that won't come from screaming, let's have a culture of accountability, right? It's going to only come from digitization, because digitization makes it impossible. If you digitize enough, it makes it impossible to not be accountable.
Exactly. Transparency is the bottom line.
Absolutely.
We're almost at the end of our discussion. Sanjiva, would you like to share any closing thoughts with our audience?
Sure. I'm very passionate about the potential for Sri Lanka. I've lived and been to enough countries in the world to understand the reality of many countries' systems, not just the marketing and the PR that you learn from outside, but by being inside and having participated. And WSO does business in 90 countries. We have customers in 90 countries, so we have a lot of experience in lots of different places. We have operations in like 15 countries now, I think, actual legal entities. We are not a shithole. I'm probably not supposed to say that. We are a great country. We have problems. Of course, we have many problems, but the location that we have, the environment that we have, the people we have, the culture we have, the values we have, they are incredibly powerful and unique in the world. And the entire world is heading east. We've had 300, 400, 500 years of sort of Western dominance in the culture of the world. And there's a general trend, and it's not something I'm making up, everybody accepts this, there's an eastward trend again. East was dominating, gone to the West, now coming back to the East. And we have a lovely little spot in that, big ocean of the East. So the potential that Sri Lanka has and the opportunity Sri Lanka has immense. Yeah, we've had a little bit of a glitch, extra glitch last year, I should say. Had a little bit of a glitch for 75 years. But, 75 years is nothing in our history. So my request for people is, you got to think generationally. Don't think this year, next year, 5 years only. Start thinking generationally. Make the changes that will drive Sri Lanka to a better place generationally. But, there's a saying, think global, act local. Like that, you think generationally, you identify the changes you do generationally, but you don't sit around and wait saying, well, that'll just happen. Because it won't happen if you don't do it yourself. Michael Jackson had in one of his songs, it was saying, if you want to change the world, start with the man in the mirror, right? So if we as Sri Lankans want to make Sri Lanka better, start with the person in the mirror and go for it. And if you don't change, then don't expect everybody else to change.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sanjiva. It was very nice having you with us.
Thank you very much, guys.
And to our viewers, thank you for joining us today. And until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.